that she would probably never be queen, but she wanted to be queen in people's hearts. And it's in people's hearts that this battle is won or lost.
Princess Royal said, "You're not queen, you're the queen's consort."
It began with whispers, then sirens. In the early hours of a crisp spring morning, helicopters could be seen ascending above Balmoral Castle, slicing across the still Scottish sky. Moments later, a blacked-out convoy drove along a restricted runway, heading for a posh London hospital. Buckingham Palace's official announcement was dry and measured. His Majesty King Charles III is undergoing medical observation following complications related to his recent diagnosis. Behind that frigid language, something seismic was happening. King Charles was dangerously ill, and for the first time throughout his reign, the kingdom was without a ruler. As the British people held their breath, royal protocol kicked in. The long-simmering subject behind closed doors now required a decisive answer. Who would lead in the king's absence? Most people expected it would be Queen Camilla. After all, she had stood by Charles during the scandal, transition, and coronation. She donned the crown, she held the title, and she believed she was entitled to the position. However, when the judgment was made, her name was not read aloud in the Privy Council's marble rooms. Camilla was not tasked with chairing emergency briefings. Camilla was not the one who received the sealed security updates. It was Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, the king's only sister. The lady who had never sought the crown had now astonishingly been given the reins of authority. Camilla was completely caught off guard, stunned. According to sources, she was not even consulted before the announcement was quietly carried out. Within minutes, a deliberate leak to the press confirmed it. Princess Anne had been named acting queen, taking over as regent while Charles was disabled. Inside Buckingham Palace, anarchy ensued. How did Camilla react? One aide stated frankly, "She lost it, utterly," screaming, weeping, and pacing, as if the crown had been snatched from her head in broad daylight. The world saw it as a constitutional judgment. This is a sensible move. Anne, with her decades of experience and unwavering presence, was the steady hand at an unsteady hour. But Camilla saw it differently, as a betrayal, a humiliation. Protocol masks a power play. This was more than just a temporary solution. It was a symbolic dethroning. And at that point, the monarchy, already weakened by scandal, age, and dwindling trust, teetered on the brink of something much more dangerous. A civil war of crowns. This is the story of a queen consort pushed aside, a princess ascending to power, and a monarchy at odds with itself. And it all started the minute King Charles fell. It was intended to be a tranquil hideaway. After weeks of royal engagements, charity events, and intimate state meetings, King Charles had gone to Balmoral Castle, his beloved Highland retreat, for a few days of relaxation. Palace aides suggested there will be a short respite. Nothing serious, just a chance for the monarch to get some fresh air and recharge. Insiders understood that despite his placid facade, the king had been battling for weeks. Rumors about Charles's health have been circulating for months, ever since the palace acknowledged that he was receiving treatment for an unidentified type of cancer. The official updates had been vague: positive response to treatment, resting comfortably, in good spirits. However, those close to him spotted the symptoms: the tiredness, the fragility, the apparent weight reduction behind the meticulously cut outfits. And now, alone in the wild Scottish silence, the king's condition took a turn that could not be ignored. According to high-level insiders, Charles slumped in his private study early in the morning. A footman discovered him slumped on a chair, pallid and lifeless, struggling to breathe. Within minutes, the royal medical team was called. Emergency protocols were initiated. The helicopter was dispatched from RAF Lossiemouth. The king was transported under tight security to an undisclosed location, thought to be the Royal London Hospital, where a sealed wing had been prepared days before, just in case. The rumors began the instant the helicopter lifted off. Local staff were suppressed. Communications were shut down. A non-essential activity advisory was issued throughout the Balmoral estate. Senior royals were notified. First, Prince William, then Princess Anne. Finally, Queen Camilla arrived, having been in London to prepare for a charity event. The news struck her like a brick. According to one assistant, Camilla was visibly shaken but immediately assumed command. She allegedly began calling advisors, expecting to be informed on the regency process, assuming, of course, that she would be the one stepping in to supervise the Crown's day-to-day operations. But that was not how things played out. Urgent meetings were already underway at Whitehall and the Privy Council office. According to constitutional law, if a king became medically incapable to undertake duties, a regent was chosen. Technically, that role is delegated to the next eligible adult in the line of succession, but only after approval by a council of senior royals and state advisors. Camilla may have been queen consort, but she had no constitutional authority to act as ruler, and with Charles disabled, the crown was briefly without a head. The question was, who would lead? And then, softly, quickly, and unanimously, the council chose Princess Anne. Some considered it a risky move. To others, the only rational option. Anne, the Princess Royal, has spent her life serving as the monarchy's iron spine. She had never sought the spotlight, never pursued power, but she'd shown up, always, for decades. More royal engagements than any other family member, performed without fail, trusted, discreet, respected. Most importantly, he is emotionally removed from the throne. She had nothing to prove and no crown to hold on to. Anne provided stability to the weak monarchy, which was dealing with an unparalleled medical crisis. By the time Camilla arrived at Buckingham Palace, the decision had already been approved. According to a top royal source, she believed she was stepping into a leadership role, but instead, she went into a castle that was already ready for Anne. The shock was immediate. Camilla was reportedly informed at a private meeting with the Lord Chamberlain that Princess Anne would take over ceremonial and state functions as acting sovereign until Charles recovered. The queen consort would keep her title, but not her influence. Silence ensued, long, cold, tense, and then anger. But that's the next chapter, because the unimaginable had already occurred. The king had fallen, and in the vacuum of power, the royal family made a decision that changed everything. They resorted to the woman who had never desired the crown, because they couldn't trust the one who did. While the country was reeling at the news of King Charles's unexpected hospitalization, decisions were being made at breakneck speed within the royal machine. Among the tumult, one name stood out with quiet certainty, one that few expected but all respected: Princess Anne. The appointment was quick, almost surgical. During an emergency Privy Council session attended by important ministers, senior royals, and constitutional consultants, it was unanimously agreed that someone should function as interim sovereign. With Charles unable to perform royal duties, continuity needed to be maintained. After all, the British monarchy is more about symbols than rule. It cannot afford to appear leaderless, even for a day. But who could fill the void? Camilla may have worn the crown alongside the king, but she lacked constitutional authority. As queen consort, she had no automatic right to exercise monarchical authority. Prince William, the clear heir, was purposefully left out of the picture, both to protect the line of succession and because, as a son, he was emotionally damaged. The royal court required someone with experience, steady, not influenced by ego or ambition. So they appealed to Princess Royal. Anne never begged for power. She had never campaigned, made public statements, or hinted at displeasure. But many in the palace understood the truth. Anne had always been the monarchy's most dependable servant. She didn't simply grasp the obligation. She embodied it. Anne had a reputation for being diligent, forthright, and unwaveringly faithful to the crown from the moment she assumed her duty as a young princess. So, when the regency paperwork were discreetly drawn, no one objected. There was no dissent or murmured protest. Those who mattered, the individuals who truly governed the palace, knew Anne was the most secure set of hands they had. Under the emergency provisions of the Regency Acts, the Princess Royal was immediately designated as acting sovereign. There was no fanfare. There was no television notice. A brief press announcement stated that Princess Anne will carry out constitutional duties on behalf of His Majesty the King during his period of recovery. The tone was clinical, almost uninteresting. However, those who paid attention noticed a seismic shift, because in the midst of that silent movement, a new power center had developed. Insiders instantly referred to it as a soft coup, not in the violent, chaotic sense, but in the manner it completely restructured the royal hierarchy overnight. Anne, who had previously stood to the side of every important royal image, was suddenly at the center of the throne's machinery. She had daily intelligence briefings. She met with the Prime Minister. She signed official state documents. She headed the weekly security meetings. Most importantly, she answered only to the crown, not to Camilla, not to Charles, not even for William. According to insiders, Camilla was only notified after the fact, which she would never forgive. The Queen Consort was not only excluded from the decision, but also from the preparation sessions that preceded it. To her, this was more than just a violation of etiquette. This was a personal betrayal, a calculated maneuver to remove her from the succession story totally. However, for those who made the call, the argument was simple. Princess Anne did not seek the throne, and that was precisely why she was trusted with it. Despite her family's history of ambition, arrogance, and scandal, Anne was the only royal who did not seek or battle for power. Until now. When Queen Camilla stormed into Buckingham Palace the morning after Anne's appointment, the atmosphere was already heated. Staff stood still, eyes lowered, avoiding her look. She had heard the murmurs, but she didn't truly believe them. Camilla was confident that she had finally earned her place at the center of the monarchy, after everything she had sacrificed and endured to achieve her place by Charles' side. But now it was evident. She had not simply been bypassed, she'd been erased. Camilla exploded when she learnt of Anne's regency powers, according to two top advisors who were present that morning. Camilla interrupted Lord Chamberlain, who was supposed to deliver the update, before he could finish his statement. "You have handed her the throne, while I am still queen. My hubby is still alive." She paced the drawing room, her voice shrill and rising. An adjacent vase, a gift from a Middle Eastern royal family, was knocked down, shattered. "I've waited 50 bloody years for this. 50. I was labeled a homewrecker, a whore, and a disgrace to the monarchy. I've been through it all, and now you're handing her the crown? Who has done nothing but hide behind horses and medals?" Camilla, according to some within earshot, was almost unrecognizable, far from the controlled public figure who had navigated years of cautious PR and eventual restoration. At that moment, she was raw, unfiltered, and furious. What is the worst part? Charles was inaccessible. Medical experts had placed the king under severe observation, with only immediate family members authorized to contact him. Camilla's calls were screened, messages are relayed. What about direct communication? Denied. The palace mentioned stress. The queen mentioned control. "They've locked me out of my own marriage," she allegedly said to a close aide. "They intend to keep him comatose while they crown Anne behind closed doors. This is not a regency, it is a coup." Camilla was enraged not only because she had been overlooked, but also because she had been humiliated. She had spent years clawing her way out of the ashes of controversy. The woman who had been ridiculed by crowds, disgraced by tabloids, and blamed for the breakdown of Diana's marriage had gradually, carefully become queen. She had walked down the aisle at Westminster Abbey. She had stood beside Charles during the coronation. She'd donned the crown. And now it all felt mocked, reduced to pageantry, discarded when real power was at stake. Camilla reportedly struck out in private with senior courtiers, demanding to know who approved Anne's job. She described the judgment as illegal, unconstitutional, and deliberately cruel. One insider provided a particularly stinging quote. "They have always disliked me. Diana's ghost still manages this establishment, and now they're attempting to bury me in her shadow again, this time via Anne." The actual kicker? Even William did not intervene. Camilla anticipated the Prince of Wales to stand up on her behalf, questioning why his own stepmother was left out of the decision. Instead, he stayed mute. Worse, he was seen meeting privately with Anne on the same day. Camilla saw quiet as a betrayal. Another indication that her status in the family, no matter how prestigious, was conditional. Camilla canceled several events in the following days. She declined to attend a planned family meeting at Sandringham. Even within the palace, she retreated from her customary duties, reportedly avoiding eye contact with staff and missing her morning walk in the gardens. For the first time since becoming queen, Camilla appeared defeated. But her rage hadn't subsided. It had just gone underground, sharpening into something colder, more lethal, and far more deliberate. Because, in her opinion, Anne hadn't just stood in for the king. She had taken the throne Camilla thought was rightly hers. And the queen consort has no intention of letting that happen. As Queen Camilla simmered in rage behind palace walls, another power block within the royal family was quietly forming, and it didn't involve her. Prince William and Princess Catherine were among the first to be informed of King Charles's illness. The Prince of Wales immediately canceled all appointments and cleared his itinerary after receiving the call. While many anticipated him to prepare to assume temporary powers himself, William took an unexpected stance. He staunchly supported Princess Anne. Behind closed doors, he hailed the decision to choose his aunt as acting sovereign, calling her the embodiment of duty and the most stable choice we have. This wasn't simply admiration, it was strategy. Those close to William believe he saw Anne's appointment as a protective shield. The monarchy was weakened by scandals, aging leadership, and rising Republican enthusiasm. The last thing it needed was Camilla, a divisive figure, attempting to wield influence in Charles's absence. However, Anne had no ego, agenda, or ambition, just competence. And William, the future king, understood how valuable that was. Kate reportedly shared her husband's feelings. In private conversations with aides, she voiced total confidence in Princess Anne, characterizing her as a woman with unshakable resolve and the only person who could keep the ship steady while Charles recovers. However, their support was not unnoticed. When Camilla discovered that William and Kate had supported Anne's regency without informing her, she felt it as personal betrayal. She thought William would at least defend her role, a royal insider said. Instead, he basically left her out in the cold. Camilla's inner circle accused the Waleses of organizing a subtle power shift, subtly realigning the monarchy away from Charles and Camilla's authority and towards a new generation, one based on Diana's legacy, Anne's credibility, and William and Kate's public appeal. In many ways, they were correct. With Charles incapacitated and Camilla increasingly isolated, the true power within the palace began to shift. Anne took on daily briefings. William oversaw external communication with foreign authorities. Kate, the constant stabilizing influence, stepped in to manage the public narrative, visiting children's hospitals, speaking softly of family resilience, and seeming effortlessly serene on TV. To the public, this rebalancing appeared normal, comforting, even hopeful. Camilla, on the other hand, was experiencing a slow-motion nightmare. She had spent decades being portrayed as the outsider, invader, and divisive person in Diana's shadow. Now, just as she believed she had finally won her place, the family has closed ranks, without her. Anne did not gloat. She did not need to. Her strength lay in her stillness, and in that stillness, William and Kate discovered a partner, someone they could rely on to maintain the monarchy's dignity while they prepared for the inevitable future, William's reign. Some insiders began referring to the trio as the steady hand, an implicit alliance of the most revered royals, Anne, William, and Catherine, that ensured the crown would weather this crisis without chaos or infighting. However, it wasn't just about survival. It was about reimagining the monarchy's future, without Camilla at the forefront. And for the Queen Consort, seeing the individuals she previously thought of as allies coalesce against her, it was a shattering realization. Her reign was always dependent on Charles. Her authority was diminished now that he was gone, even if only temporarily. As the dust settled following the royal shakeup, the populace reacted quickly and overwhelmingly one-sided. Within hours after the revelation that Princess Anne will serve as temporary sovereign amid King Charles's health crisis, social media networks erupted. What began as cautious compassion for the king's plight swiftly developed into a full-fledged national occasion, with a trending feeling that had the palace scrambling. Princess Anne should have been queen all along. Users on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram shared decades-old film of Anne at military inspections, charity events, and diplomatic visits, including images of her shaking hands with international leaders, comforting veterans, and speaking frankly without rehearsed polish. In just 24 hours, one viral TikTok entitled, "The Queen We Never Had, Now the Queen We Need," received over 2.5 million views. Even longtime royal critics, who are typically mute or critical, began to praise Anne's competence and no-nonsense demeanor. While others courted cameras, Anne showed up, again and again, stated one widely shared Facebook post. "No drama, no scandal, it's just service. That is royalty." The headlines followed: The Times, "In Anne We Trust." The Guardian article, "A duty-driven monarchy, Anne's steady hand at the helm." The Daily Mail, "Camilla sidestepped. Was it the right call?" Polls revealed a shift in the national mood. A YouGov flash poll conducted 2 days following the announcement yielded astonishing results. 68% of Britons backed Anne's appointment as acting queen. 59% thought that Anne would have been a better monarch than Charles. Only 21% thought Camilla should have taken the post. However, while Anne's star climbed, Camilla's plunged. Clips of her public appearances were analyzed online, with body language experts pointing out forced grins, clenched fists, and fleeting chilly stares. Camilla's brief interaction with a reporter, during which she declined to react and went away, was mercilessly mocked and branded Queen Ghosted. It didn't help that Camilla's reputation had never entirely recovered in the eyes of Diana's admirers. For many, Anne's intervention while Camilla was sidelined felt like poetic justice. The public narrative swiftly aligned. Camilla wore the crown, but Anne carried it. The royal commentators couldn't ignore it either. "This is an uncomfortable truth for the palace," remarked royal expert Richard Palmer during a morning news program. "The public's message is clear. Anne embodies the monarchy they want: quiet, diligent, and unshakable." Despite her years of devotion, Camilla is still viewed as a member of the royal controversy rather than the royal core. Behind the royal gates, the communications crew entered damage control mode. Camilla's performances were hastily rescheduled. Her team asked for softer coverage from sympathetic outlets. Photos of her with Charles were recirculated to promote togetherness. However, nothing appeared to stick. The moment had already gone, and the public had made their decision. They did not desire crowns. They sought credibility. And Anne, with her crisp suits and matter-of-fact demeanor, had become an unexpected symbol of stability. One tweet expressed it best. Camilla sought the limelight. Anne did not. That's why one is burning and the other is glowing. Within days, thick pieces surfaced proposing the previously unthinkable, a more permanent regency, with Anne continuing to perform the king's duties indefinitely. The theory, while constitutionally complicated, was gaining traction, because in reality, the people were reacting to a monarchy in flux, desperate for a figure they could trust rather than Charles's absence. They found Princess Anne. The queen of the palace was never crowned, but the country just did. In a monarchy based on centuries of history, a single decision may upend the entire order. King Charles's health issue was more than just a medical catastrophe. It became a watershed moment for the royal institution, its future, and the seething rivalries under the surface. In the king's absence, the palace did what was necessary. It chose stability. It chose experience. It selected Princess Anne. In doing so, it quietly reconfigured the balance of royal power, without the necessity for a coronation or a crown. Camilla's world has altered forever. She was once confident in her standing near the throne, but now she finds herself pushed out of real power, with her public authority eroded. The people have spoken, regardless of her title, and the palace has listened. Princess Anne did not ask for authority. She did not campaign for notice. She did not smile for headlines or on-stage press interviews. She just showed up, year after year, event after event. Duty trumps ego, service trumps show, and in the eyes of a tired public, such quiet consistency was worth more than any diamond-encrusted diadem. Now, while Charles recovers behind securely closed doors, the question hangs in the air like morning mist over Windsor. Will he ever fully return to power? Or was the baton handed in spirit, if not in law? Because the monarchy is currently without a king. Despite this, the situation does not lack leadership. Princess Anne, formerly confined to the sidelines, has emerged as the unshakable figure at the core of the crown. William and Kate, silently supporting her, have set the tone for what is to come. Camilla, left out in the cold, is learning the true meaning of power in the absence of public favor. The throne has not fallen, it has not shattered. However, it has shifted. A new order has quietly formed, led by a woman who does not require the title of queen to lead effectively. The king may still live. However, at the palace and in the hearts of the people, the crown has moved on.